Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for OnSI every single day since August 2019, and we're continuing to march forward through yet another season together. As always, you can find our 100% free, 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook or Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter. And today we are talking about 3 lineup changes we think the Jacksonville Jaguars should make over the final 10 games of the season. Now, obviously, the Jaguars are rolling during their 4-1 start, but they are riding a 2-game losing streak into the bye week. It's not just 2 losses either. It's 2 games where they've simply, the first game against the Seattle Seahawks, they lose 20-12, but frankly, the way the game played out, it felt like the score should have been worse than that. The Seahawks outplayed the Jaguars from the jump. They were more physical than them, and the Jaguars on both sides of the ball in the trenches got beat up. Then you look at their Week 7 loss to the Los Angeles Rams, and it was a pure blowout. The Jaguars were never in that game. The Rams were up 21-0 very, very early in it, and the Jaguars didn't score until I believe it was already 28-0. That was the worst performance by far of the Jaguars during the Liam Cohen era, and that is kind of the momentum and the tone that they are going into the bye week with. It's not the excitement over the 4-1 start or even the positivity of a 4-3 start. It is that they are riding a 2-game losing streak. And to me, they have to make changes coming out of this bye week to ensure that the losing streak does not continue. Now, for me, one of 3 personnel changes I would make, I would have more Tim Patrick in the offense as an outside receiver over Dyami Brown. It seemed like the Jaguars went with more Parker Washington over Dyami Brown against the Rams. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with the shoulder injury Brown has had. But I'm not going to purely say I think the Jaguars need to, increase Parker Washington's role. Because, frankly, Washington's made some plays, but Washington also has the worst drop rate on the team right now. Parker's made quite a few mistakes himself. Goes out of bounds on that one deep shot from Lawrence against the Rams. So I don't think it's as simple as saying, just play Parker more than Dyami. I think instead, look to Tim Patrick more. He's been very limited in terms of the volume that's gone his way this year, but outside of one play against the Bengals and then that drop he had against the Chiefs that was nearly an interception, I think Patrick's been very reliable for the Jaguars in the passing game. Again, it hasn't been to a high volume, so it's not a lot of sample size, but just, they're looking for something to spark the offense. Obviously, Patrick isn't an overly explosive player, but he's a big body who seems like he does well at the things that Trevor Lawrence kind of needs his receivers to do well at right now. And I think just turning to him more frequently and more often in the passing game, especially compared to, Dyami Brown even potentially, is going with Tim Patrick. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. After that, another personnel move I think that they should make. I think you need to start seeing more Antonio Johnson in the starting defense over Andrew Wingard. Now, Wingard's a very tough player. He's very good responsibility-wise, and I do think he's been put in some bad situations. Offense is just scheming against the Jaguars and the kind of scenarios that they're putting Wingard in. But I also think you're seeing that lack of speed and explosiveness from Wingard, which we pointed to as a potential issue during training camp when it became clear he was going to start opposite Eric Murray, who also has a lack of speed and explosiveness, that it can hurt you in the back end. And I think with the big plays that the Jaguars have been given up on defense, They simply need more range, more athleticism in the back end. Now, Johnson is somebody who, he hasn't been relied on for many stretches as a starter in his career, outside of that one stint in 2024, because there are just some things that he's hit or miss at. Won't always be the most consistent guy. There'll be some blown coverages and assignments, etc. But overall, I think Johnson, he at least gives you more upside. Does he give you a lower floor? He does. But you get a higher upside in coverage, which is what right now I think the Jaguars need. And, had the Jaguars not parted ways with Darnell Savage, that'd be him who I'd be saying, that's who needs to be starting right now. And Wingard definitely has a place in the defense. Should absolutely be there in dime packages. But they just need to get more athletic in that back end right now. And unfortunately, that is the quickest and the easiest way to do so. If Caleb Ransaw was healthy, maybe he's starting right now. I think Wingard still would have started the year off as a starter. But I think by now you would have seen Ransaw get more and more on his plate in the back end. And he was obviously a very athletic prospect. We'll see if the rest of the safety room can kind of fill out around Wingard. You have Antonio Johnson. You have Ray Lane. You have, obviously, the guy they picked up from Minnesota. But right now, it seems like Antonio Johnson is their best route in going. At least trying something. Hey, maybe it won't even work, but you can say that you tried something. That you did something different. And I think it's important for them to consider that on defense at this point in time. Now, lastly, I think the final person who should be seeing more snaps, I think Travis Hunter at corner. And I understand, I truly do. They really need him at receiver right now because Brian Thomas Jr. is struggling. Even looked like he got hurt against the Rams. De'Ami Brown's been injured this year and he's struggling. Parker Washington's struggling. Travis Hunter Jr. right now is playing the best of the receivers. So I completely understand the notion that they badly need him at wide receiver right now and arguably need him at receiver more than they need cornerback, where they have guys they like Jordan Lewis, like Buster Brown, like Greg Newsome, who they just traded for, like Jarian Jones. But even with all these truths, I still think Travis Hunter needs to play more defense, people. I think Travis Hunter is their best playmaker, not named Josh Hines Allen and Devin Lloyd on the defense side of the ball. And I know he hasn't directly led to a takeaway yet, but the rate of which Travis Hunter makes plays on defense compared to the low level of snaps he plays in terms of volume, I mean, it's obvious that he has to be on the field, and he has to be on the field more, in my opinion. Made a great play against Devontae Adams against the Rams in just 14 snaps. Made a really good plays against JSN against Seattle Seahawks. Was very good against Worthy in the Kansas City Chiefs game. Had some nice reps against Nico Collins in week 3. I mean, had what should have been a game-winning pass breakup against the Cincinnati Bengals that got incorrectly called DPI. Simply put, I think Travis Hunter is one of the Jaguars' best defenders. And yes, he is their only defender who is also immensely valuable on the other side of the ball. So it's hard to compare him to the others. I completely understand and am aware of that. I just believe if the Jaguars want to get their best 11 on the field, on both sides of the ball, that Hunter simply has to be involved. And yeah, nobody has ever been a full-time player and started both sides. And maybe asking him to do it 7 games into his career is completely unreasonable. But that's how talented the guy is. That's how much they need him on both sides of the ball. So overloading his plate, 100%. Absolutely might be doing that. But the Jaguars are in that point in the season where they need plays to be made. And Travis Hunter is one of their best playmakers. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Be back next time.